What's up guys, TechLab here. Now in today's video we're going to be taking a look at a brand new case from Sahara Gaming. They shipped this case across to us and I found it was actually quite interesting because it's not the typical fish tank style design that many of the brands are putting out at the moment, but it does share some of the features. So that's what we're going to take a look at today and we're going to see if it's any good. So this is the SaharaGaming SG520 and I found this was actually quite interesting, and the reason for that is because it does share many commonalities between a standard desktop case as well as those fish tank style dual chambers that so many brands are actually putting out at the moment. It's a pretty standard desktop style case really when it comes to sizes. We have a power supply mounted in the bottom, we've got the motherboard at the back, and then we have this 70-30 split across the front. Now you don't tend to see that in the fish tank style dual chamber cases because they're usually full glass paneled at the sides and you have the power supply in the back, but this one doesn't. It comes with that, but it does share a few features from those fish tank style cases, like the actual glass panels themselves. The glass panels actually have a wrap around to the front, and then they've actually taken out the border here, so there is no pillar that's actually sitting inside the case there, and they've actually included the border around here, and then it kind of joins into the front and it goes around the front too. That actually gives you a kind of full glass panel look from the side. But of course the power supply goes in the bottom, so the extra 30% on the bottom kind of hides that. This case is in a two-tone as well, so we've got the white on black, which means that hopefully you can actually get away with white and black components, so that's actually going to be quite dynamic, but generally it is pretty standard across the board. On the back we've got a pretty standard layout here. We've got 7 PCI Express. That means it is a full ATX case, so you can fit an ATX, micro ATX or an ITX board in here. We have the place for the IO shield at the top here, a mount for just a 120mm fan, and then of course the power supply goes in the bottom. There are no fancy little trays for this one. You have to install it into the back just like you do on many normal cases. If we just remove the back here, which is done by just some standard thumb screws, they are actually captive so they won't come out, but you can undo them. We can take a look and see what kind of space we get in the back and some of the extra features here. Now the case side itself is double rolled steel and it's actually not too bad. We've got a ventilation panel at the front here, which we'll go through why that has at the moment, but apart from that it's pretty standard and I don't think you're going to get any surprises there. In the rear, everything is pretty opened up. We have this placement at the front here where we can put additional fans. Now that's going to become important because we do have the glass panel on the front, so if we want to include some airflow, we're going to have to put some fans somewhere, and that's where they've chosen to do it. We have this kind of split bottom here where your power supply will go at the back here, and it actually separates off with some holes in it into the front here where you can fit some additional things. There is actually a little sliding bay in there where we can install a hard drive, but you can also actually mount a fan to it or something like a water pump. So that could probably mean that this case can kind of go really well with some kind of water cooled system. Then we have an extra little mount here for a 2.5-inch SSD. Now the back is pretty standard here and we have about half an inch worth of space for cable management. Hopefully we can actually hide things down here. Of course, the front I/O is on the top and they've kind of mounted it across the side here. Sometimes I don't really like that because if you are mounting fans in the back of this placement, you have to kind of get the cables out of the way, otherwise they're going to be in the way of the flow. But I'm sure they've probably thought about that and there's probably enough space up here just to be able to mount the cables all around like that. When it does come to that front I/O, we are pretty limited, to be honest, for a modern case. We do have a power switch, a reset switch, a USB 2. Actually, we have 2 USB 2s, which seems a little bit odd in 2024. We have a separate microphone and headphone jack. I do like the separates. Some cases only come with the integrated and you have to get adapters and stuff. We have a single USB 3, which is quite surprising because there is no USB-C on this, but it is a budget case, so maybe that's what it is. And then we have an LED switch. Now, usually the LED switches will just hook into something like a controller, so you can actually control the LED lighting from that switch. I do like it when cases do include that switch, although not many people actually use it. We also on top have a magnetic dust filter. And if we actually just flip this on the side, you'll be able to see the kind of space we've got here for cooling. Across the top, we've got these full rails that go back to front. We can actually fit up to a 360mm radiator in here, or 3 120mm fans, or 2 140mm fans. So the top actually does have quite a bit of cooling that we can actually include. And then, of course, we need to take a look at the inside. Now to undo the front panel of this case, we just need to remove this captive screw at the back. That will actually just get to a point where you can then click the glass forward and it's actually slotted into the bottom here and here, so we can just lift that glass out. The glass panel itself is nice and thick, so I don't think you're going to be able to break this. It's about 4 to 5 millimeter, and then running across the sides we do have these metal panels where everything just fits into the case, which is going to give it extra strength. Inside the case there are plenty of features in this. Of course your motherboard is going to be mounted up here, but we do have 2 holes for cable management at the top. That's actually going to be nice for when we come to hide cabling. We have 2 great big holes on the side here, which is good for your 24 pin. We have 2 holes in the bottom here, which is going to be great for the cabling coming up to the motherboard for your front IO and your USBs. And then we have an extra slot at the front here, which is actually going to be used to obviously bring the cables through for your graphics card. I do like it when cases actually include that little slot in the front here, because it means you can actually get away with not dragging all the cables forward to get into your graphics card, and you're not going to risk getting any of the cables caught in the fans or anything. Then we come to some of the differences here. The glass panel at the front can be removed. There is simply a screw at the bottom here and a screw at the top there. That can actually be taken out. I don't know or don't think that they actually provide any alternatives, but it is nice to be able to take that out when you're working on the system, because it means you can get your hands in there without obviously damaging anything. Then the other difference on this case, where it comes to a shared kind of fish tank style dual chamber, is of course this placement at the front. Hopefully here you can fit a 360mm radiator. I'm sure we'll test that when we come to build into it, but of course you can fit a 3 120mm fans. They'll fit perfectly fine. There are no extra rails there for 140s or anything bigger, so you're going to be pretty much stuck to the fans that you can fit there, but hopefully we won't have an issue and we'll be able to get something fitted in there quite well. Again, like I said before, there is a mount at the bottom here where you can put hard drives in, and you can fit a 120mm fan to it, which will actually just exhaust or draw air through the bottom, where we've got a full mesh magnetic style covering on the bottom. So there's the covering there. Of course, we don't have any rails in here to put extra fans because your power supply is going to be at the back here, but here it will be able to draw air through from that bottom fan if you need it to be. Now the overall case actually feels nice and strong. It's pretty standard when it comes to features. It's got a few budget features in there, like the little PCI cards at the back. You have to snap them out to be able to get them out, which is a little bit of a shame that they didn't include that, but this case is actually pretty cheap. At the moment, if you buy it from their website, it's going to cost you around £55, so that's actually pretty cheap for a case. And I think on Amazon it's around 60 to 70. I'm not sure why there is a big price difference there, but while it's on discount, it would actually be a pretty decent case to pick up. But of course, we need to really test this case, and the only way to do that is to put a build in it. When it comes to putting a build into this system, we have a bunch of parts here. The specifications of this don't really matter because we're only really testing the case, but we're going to go with a bit of a gigabyte theme here. For the motherboard, we're going to be using this B660Gaming X. It is a full ATX motherboard. It is a DDR4 one, so you can get away with using cheaper memory. And of course, it is an LGA 1700, so we'll need a CPU that can actually match. For the CPU, we're going to be putting in this i5 12600KF. These are absolute bargains at the moment if you can pick them up. I managed to get this one for about £150 last week, and to be honest, for anybody that really knows how to build gaming PCs, you'll know that this CPU is more than enough to be able to game, and you don't have the onboard graphics, but that's okay, because if you're gaming, you're going to be using a graphics card anyway. We will be doing more on this CPU on the channel soon, so make sure you subscribe to catch that. For the memory, we've just got 4 sticks, a pretty standard Corsair Vengeance RGB. I think that looks nice in a system. And then for the graphics card, we're going to be using the Gigabyte GeForce RTX 4060. It is the 3-fan model, and if you watched the channel, you would have seen the video that we recently did on this one. So it's going to test some of that width on the graphics card, which, by the way, will take up to a 425mm graphics card in this case, so you'll have no problem fitting those 4090s in there. But that's the card that we're going to be using. Power supply is pretty standard as well. We're going to be using a Gigabyte Aorus 750 watt, more than enough for this system. The unit isn't the biggest one out there, but it is a fully modular one, so hopefully we can keep down on the cables that we put in there, but we will be able to give it a good test because I don't think the cables on this one are that soft, so kind of wrangling everything around and getting it hidden away will be a little bit of a challenge, but we'll see. Then when it comes to cooling, one thing that we're going to try and do is we're going to try and fit this 360mm AIO from Thermalright into the back at the back. I'm not quite sure if it will fit or not yet because I can see a little bit of an indent, but we'll give it a go and we'll see if that fits. If not, we'll have to fit it into the top, but that is what we do these tests for. And to be able to match it up, I've also got some extra fans. Now these fans should match the Thermalright fans on the cooler, which is something I like to do. I like to make sure all fans match, and they are in white, so that will give us an opportunity as well to test whether a white on black kind of theme in this system will actually look nice. So I suppose with all the parts ready to go, we just need to build a system. Okay, so as far as the build goes, this case actually looks pretty stunning once you've got all the components in it, but there were a few issues during the build. Unfortunately, as far as the case goes, when you come to build into it, it is one of those ones that has to make you think, and I don't really like that. I don't like cases that have to make me think to be able to install stuff, and I'll give you a few examples. We did originally want to mount the all-in-one cooler into the back there. Now that is a 360mm spot, and you can fit 3 120mm fans perfectly fine in there. But if you are attaching the radiator to the back, you won't actually fit. And the reason for that is because they've actually left an indent in the steel. So you can actually fit it in, but the screws are just not long enough to be able to get to the radiator. They do supply you with some extra long screws in with the case itself, but they are actually for fitting fans to things like radiators or the rest of the case to kind of mount fans down onto here or onto the little plate that we took out. And unfortunately, they'd be too long and they would go through your radiator. So you can actually fit in there a 240mm. I did test one of them as I was building, and that would fit perfectly fine. If you were actually going to mount the radiator with a push-pull configuration, even the 360 will actually fit in there because the fans will bring it away from the steel itself. So you can get away with some options there, but it's unfortunate that they left that indent in there because it just means that if you are, like most people will just have a radiator with a single set of fans, it's not going to go. So that meant we had to actually install it into the top, and we hit another issue. This actual radiator right now is pretty much touching the RAM sticks, so you do need some low profile RAM if you're going to be able to fit this in here. I don't know what size RAM you would need to be able to fit a even bigger radiator, something like a 280mm, because it will take one in the top, but you're just going to hit the RAM, so it probably won't take one because of the motherboard. But apart from that, the build it kind of went okay. There isn't a lot of room in the back for cable management, and hiding white cables just is nearly impossible, just the way that the case is actually designed. But some of the features that it does have actually come in handy. Having the cable come out here for your graphics card works really well. It means that you're going to hide things away, but of course you can't put a fan on the front there or on the bottom. If you actually do that, you will need to draw this cable through a different location, but they provide lots of locations. There are some actually on the side, on the inside there, so you could bring it out and into the graphics card there. The motherboard fit perfectly fine, the graphics card fit perfectly fine. Everything else fits perfectly fine. One of the other things that you need to know when you are fitting fans into that backplate there, at the moment the configuration I've got set up, because I did install 2 fans anyway, just to show you that they will fit, they are actually blowing air out. So are the ones on the radiator, and so is the one on the back. So this would actually create not the best airflow kind of situation, because the only place that it can draw air in is the bottom, and there's only a little space for that because the power supply is at the back. So you will want to reverse the fans, probably in that side panel there, to bring some air in and then exhaust out the rest. It is worth actually picking up some reverse fans for that, so that you can actually still see the colours if you want to do it that way. Some people don't like seeing the backs of fans in their cases, particularly when they've paid a lot of money for some ARGB fans, so make sure you get the reverse ones. I know Sahara Gaming do tend to provide reverse fans in some of their cases, particularly the M808W, that came with reverse fans in it. They would fit perfectly in there. I don't know if you can buy them separately, but actually I don't think you can buy them separately, but you can from other manufacturers, so consider that when building into this. If you want to put 3 fans in the back there without a radiator, you want to make sure that they are reversible so you can still see them. Apart from that, the build actually went okay. There's nothing really wrong with it aside from the cooling options here. Everything fits in perfectly. Cable management's not the best, but you can do a pretty decent job with it. If you were to actually use some kind of cable extensions in here, particularly the ones that extend and not the ones that go straight into your power supply, it's even more cables that you've got to try and cable manage, because all of these things will go in there. For some reason, this system's decided to kind of speed up its fans at the moment, so we'll turn it off. I'm not exactly sure what the system was doing there, but apart from that, it seems to be okay. It does look an absolute stunning case. I wouldn't mind this on my desk, to be honest, with the nice kind of panoramic glass fronting of it. I think you just got to be more careful on the parts that you decide, and watch a few more videos on it. Watch this video, watch a few other videos that people have put out on it, just to kind of see what will and won't fit. Obviously, go to their website, make sure you read the specifications, but overall, for the price, it's not that bad. For £55 from their website right now, I did check this morning, you're getting a pretty decent case. It's a nice quality case, got some good features. You just got to be careful of those things. Anyway, that brings us to the end of the look at the SaharaGaming SG520. Nice case. Need a bit of thought into it, but apart from that, it's pretty cool. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content. We're going to be looking at even more cases going forward. We've been sent a bunch of them from manufacturers, so you won't want to miss them. And I'm sure, as always, we'll catch you guys in the next one.